we can't say enough about tobacco and smoking and the effects of tobacco and smoking on humans. We do have a very wide phenomenon here of smokers here in Egypt and all around the world. Today we are going to be talking about the effects of smoking and how it could lead to tragic death or even tragic disease such as cancer. Today we are joined by Dr. Mohammed Sha'lان, who is a professor of surgery at the National Cancer Institute, and we're going to talk about more details about smoking, how it affects our bodies, and how we can get over the addiction to smoking. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Doctor, even though people on earth now, no one doesn't know anything about the risks and how smoking can harm human beings in general, whether directly or indirectly, yet number of smokers increase and increase day after the other. Not only talking about old, even children now are smoking, and this is more dangerous.
Very true.
And even now we have more risks when it comes to disease. Things changed. We can see these diseases. In the past, we didn't see it as much as we can see it today. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, tobacco is the only product that human beings buy to kill at least 30 to 50% of the buyers. So tobacco is killed 100 million people in the last century, and if we don't do anything about it, or we don't stop young people from being smokers, and if we don't stop smokers from smoking and help them quit, we'll have 1 billion deaths from tobacco during this century. We have 100,000 cancer cases, new cancer cases every year in Egypt. A big percentage of them can be prevented by, number one, preventing smoking. If you prevent smoking, you can prevent a lot of deaths. At least 50% of adults, of grown-ups, smoke, which is really alarming.
Catastrophe.
15% of school children under the age of 15 smoke.
Wow.
Which is a big percentage too.
It's a very unfortunate phenomenon, though. I mean,
it's
tragic.
It's a disaster. It's a disaster. We are seeing more and more smokers. We have a lot of myths and misconceptions in the community about smoking. They tell you shisha is not harmful. Somebody will tell you, I quit smoking, but I started to smoke shisha. This is totally wrong. One shisha is equivalent to smoking 100 cigarettes.
Oh, wow.
So the myth that shisha is not harmful because the smoke is filtered through water, all that is nonsense.
They believe that just to change the tube, it is not going to harm them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wrong conceptions in the community.
So this is not true even?
No. No, it's not true at all. And as I told you, it's if we don't do something about it, we are going to have 1 billion deaths in the coming century. And as you said, if people know that smoking is harmful, smoking causes a lot of diseases, cancer is on the top of them, heart diseases, respiratory problems, strokes, in addition to hundreds of other diseases, but these are the main 4 big ones. So people know that, but they don't do anything about it. And if you know that in a way cancer is preventable. 1/3 of smokers will die of disease related to their smoking, either cancer, respiratory problems, or heart problems and stroke. So this is one thing we can do. We can prevent cancer by preventing smoking. A smoker loses 5 years at least of his life, of his valuable life. Smokers spend 5 to 10% of their income on smoking. And they deprive their families, their children, from getting good nutrition, good education maybe, because they spend 10% of their...
And what about those smokers that start at a very young age? Like you said, I mean, 15% of smokers are of 15 or younger, 15 years or younger.
15% of school children are smokers.
Oh, that's even worse. how do you analyze this, and how do you kind of, if you could elaborate on the dangers and the risks and how worse it is to start smoking at that young age?
You know, smoking at the young age is the route to addiction. When you smoke at a young age, it's easy to go into other illegal stuff. If you don't smoke, it's much more difficult to go into addiction. This is one thing. The other thing is that we have to do something about children changing into smokers. How can we do that? We can have in the schools, we have to make some awareness about dangers of smoking. We have to change the syllabus at schools or add something about smoking. We have to really create a culture that is against smoking, not against smokers, but against smoking. We have to have a culture that if they see a child smoking, they'll talk to him, they'll tell him, they'll advise him not to smoke. But in our culture, it really doesn't matter. You see a young kid smoking and nobody talks, nobody says anything. Now children can go to kiosks and buy cigarettes, which is illegal. If you, in the States or in Europe, you have to show your ID if you want to buy cigarettes. But here we don't do that. It's easier. It's much easier. Not only smoking, we have to talk about passive smoking or second-hand smoking.
This is what I wanted to ask about, because if the person or the smoker is going to harm himself, okay, this is his own problem, but the idea he is making or causing a lot of problems also to all members of his family if he's not scared about his life. What about his children, his kids, his wife, all members at house, not only at house, but of course his colleagues, wherever he is standing in. And even nowadays we can see some people, they are smoking in lifts, for example, which is incredible, you know. It's unbelievable, because this, of course, you can never tell who is with you inside the lift and how far you can harm him, for example.
Yeah, this is very true. Second-hand smoking is a problem, especially in Egypt.
Is it right that it is more than the smoker himself? He can be affected?
No, it's not more, but it is nearly as bad as the smoker himself.
I think the whole population in Egypt could be considered as second-hand smoking.
Exactly. You know, when you know
because of the environment and the fumes and everything.
Smokers, then the other 50% will be affected by second-hand smoking. In surveys done in Egypt, if you don't smoke but you work in a workplace where others smoke, after 8 hours it is as if you smoked 10 cigarettes. Wow. So people do not know that. People think that if they don't smoke, then they are safe. It's not true. If you don't smoke but you live with somebody who smokes, or you work with somebody who smokes, then you are affected. If you live or work with somebody who smokes, you have a 30% more chance of getting heart attacks and 20% more chance of getting lung cancer, which is also very alarming. The people should know that they should tell, it's the right to protect themselves and their children from smoking. And in a survey we found that children in families who smoke, they are at a much higher, they have a much higher chance of going to the emergency room for respiratory problems or asthma or stuff like that. It increases the probability of getting leukemias, lymphomas, brain tumors in children living in homes that smoke.
When it comes to this, I mean, for example, talking about the children and how smoking can harm them, for example, I don't know, but sometimes when I pass by a place, for example, I can see a lot of people, they are smoking outside the place, outdoors, because smoking inside is not allowed. So I can smell it very well, even though we are outdoors, and you know, that sometimes I feel that the air is polluted. I smell the smoking let's say 2 meters after I pass by these people. So of course this will attack me, for example, or that's why the air is, can it pollute the air, for example?
Yeah, that's a very good observation.
It happened to me a lot.
Actually, in some cities or in some buildings, they designate a room for smoking. But this is also totally not accepted. There is no, you know, the Americans say about designating rooms in a building just for smokers is that if you are in a swimming pool, there is no, you cannot draw a line and say this is a peeing area and this is a non-peeing area. There's no, you cannot stop smoke from going into the other rooms. There's no safe level.
But you're talking about a room. I'm talking about outdoors, in the air. Just because now we have a lot of such companies that are located, they can move out of the company, for example, and move out to the street, and they stand and they smoke.
Yeah, I mean, this is the least you can do to...
But still, he can affect all the people who will pass by.
Of course.
They didn't do anything except they are walking in the streets.
Of course, you know, if you know that smoke has at least 2,000 chemicals, 50 of them are carcinogenic. DDT, which is an internationally banned pesticide, is in the smoke, is in the cigarette smoke. Cyanide, carbon monoxide, lead, 50 carcinogens are there in the smoke. And you know, just by inhaling the smoke you can get affected.
Could you give us some information about how smoking is linked to cancer and how it could lead to an escalation of cancer in our bodies?
Yeah. Smoking, as I just mentioned, there are 2,000 chemicals in the smoke, in the cigarette smoke. 50 of them can cause cancer. Like, as I said, there is cyanide, carbon monoxide, DDT, lead, I mean, a lot of chemicals that can, benzene, butane, all this can cause cancer. So, talking about cancer, what cancers can we get from smoking? You have nasal sinuses cancer. You have lips, mouth, oral cavity, larynx, laryngeal cancer. Lung cancer is on the top of the list, lung cancer. Cervical cancer in females. Some forms of leukemias. Esophageal cancer. Colon cancer, pancreatic cancer. So, I mean, it's
scary.
It is scary. Smoking is linked.
You know what is the most, or the strange thing about it is that it's one of the main sources of our income here in Egypt.
You know, it's, I'm
and
very
so
happy.
far, even that whatever happened after the revolution, still the only source of income that is really working
is smoking.
No, you know, I cannot say it's the
or
only,
the factory of
it's the
smoking
only
or
source
something
of
like.
income.
No, it is
because,
one
you
of
know,
the main sources. It was announced that.
It is a source of income,
but
of course the Suez Canal is the #1 source of income.
No, I'm not talking in relation to Suez Canal or the tourism. I'm talking about industries, about factories. Yes, industries working.
Yeah, I'll answer that very important.
But very quickly because we only have less than a minute.
Yeah, okay. The tobacco industry tries to propagate that. Oh, it's an important industry, you cannot close it down. But this is not very true. I mean, you pay a few $1 billion in Egypt every year as a cost of loss of productive years, sickness, treatments, absenteeism, fires. There is an economic cost for that, which is a few $1 billion every year. The world spends $500 billion a year as a cost for smoking. So if you know that, the general domestic product of Egypt, the GDP, loses nearly 4% of its value because of smoking, then you know
We opened something that we have to talk about it a lot, actually, because even though citizens will pay for this, but again, the amount of money will come from the factory or from this industry to the country itself. You know, it's a long story. Let's discuss it in another episode.
But I am sure that the income coming from the tobacco industry is much less than 4% of the GDP of Egypt.
At the end, Dr. Mohammed Sha'lan, Professor of Surgery, National Cancer Institute, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's move on to a break and we'll be back.